And for the Cuse, it's about knocking shots down. They haven't done a great job so far. Let's see if tonight's the start of something great.
And maybe a little bit of a glimmer of hope against Michigan the other night as we dive into our starting lineups. They're brought to you by Hewlett-Packard. Jamal Branch makes his second consecutive start, but a veteran-laden lineup led by D'Angelo Harrison. A lot of experience for a team that is thinking NCAA tournament or bust. Meanwhile, for Syracuse, a bit of a change here for the Orange. Jim Boeheim is going to put Michael Gbinije in as a starter for the first time in his career. Got some size in the front court. McCullough and Christmas, Trevor Cooney trying to get going. He had 4 threes against Michigan in their loss on Tuesday night. It's a battle for the Empire State. Both teams claiming to be New York's college team. I guess for at least one more year, we'll get to figure that out. These two teams met last season at Madison Square Garden, with Syracuse pulling out the win when they were the #2 team in the country. This is the 89th meeting between these two Empire State rivals. Carl Hess is one of our lead officials. Throws the ball in the air, and it's tapped out of bounds to St. John's. 5-1 start, matching the best under Steve Lavin, part of an excellent opening to the season for the Big East as a conference. The lone loss for the Red Storm against a very good Gonzaga team. And against that vaunted Syracuse 2-3 zone, let's see what this offense for St. John's can do. A lot of experience between Pointer, Harrison, and Green. Everybody touching it on the perimeter, leading to a Phil Green 3 to get St. John's on the board first.
Well, this is a very aggressive St. John's team. Coach Lav talked before the game how he loves the multiple looks, the aggressiveness of everyone on this roster.
St. John's has not won at the Carrier Dome in 15 years. That was when Mike Jarvis was the head coach in 1999. Syracuse hasn't lost a non-conference home game since 08. Caleb Joseph can shoot it, hasn't done it a whole lot this year. The Orange empty on their first possession. Here is Jamal Branch into the corner for another 3 for Green. Some of that size down low. Obekba battling with Gbinije. And St. John's gets another opportunity. Tough to rebound out of the zone, but they have to do it against the big bodies of Syracuse.
Well, Syracuse has not rebounded well thus far. It is a little more difficult to rebound out of the zone, but it's old school. Find a man and put a body on him.
Failed to do that for a good chunk of this season. Their rebounding percentage is pretty low so far. St. John's has shot better from three-point range the last couple of ball games. Harrison with 8 on the shot clock. Branch goes to work, looking backdoor for Green. Syracuse with a solid defensive possession and pushing the pace is the freshman point guard Caleb Joseph. Coming off the loss on Tuesday night against Michigan. A couple of late turnovers by a freshman. Joseph and McCullough each had turnovers in the final minute of the game after Spike Albrecht had a monster performance, hit a late 3 to take the lead.
Look at this matchup between Christmas and Obekba, really battling down there.
They're both going for this rebound, and it's won by Christmas for another possession for the Orange. Gbinije for 3. Syracuse ice cold to start the season from three-point range. Went 0 of 14 against Holy Cross. 6 of 17, not bad numbers against Michigan, but they've got to find some stroke from the outside. Harrison is short.
Starts with 1. Starts with 1.
Knock one shot down, see if they can get going a little bit. First career start for Gbinije. He played very solid minutes against Michigan on Tuesday night. 10 points and 5 boards. Here's Gbinije on the deck, and it's knocked out of bounds by Harrison. Still 16 on the shot clock. Steve Lavin in his 5th season. They've improved every year since he started at St. John's after that 21-win season when they went to the tournament in his first year. That was mostly Norm Roberts players. This senior class has improved mightily over the last 3 years. 13 wins, 17 wins, 20 a season ago. Gbinije with the floater, and it goes down to get Syracuse on the board.
You hear me talk about paint touches all game. That's a huge key to the game. The team that gets into the paint more is going to have more success shooting the basketball.
And Branch trying to penetrate. Into the game is Rashid Jordan. Here's Harrison in the short corner. It's a dangerous spot against the Syracuse zone because they do a good job of defending it. Harrison on Gbinije, trying to go down low, and Obekba getting in the way of Christmas. That's going to be a very crucial matchup tonight. Obekba and Jordan both putting pressure on McCullough and out of bounds. Still with 16 on the shot clock, and Jim Boeheim Second all-time in wins behind your former coach Mike Krzyzewski. Of course, coming off that loss to Michigan. Michigan didn't have a very good performance today. Overall losing to NJIT. But Jim Boeheim has never had to make up for so much lost production from one year to the next. Shot clock down to 3. Joseph, a deep 3, way short.
The key is to attack earlier in the shot clock.
Branch will put it in, plus the foul on Joseph.
That's one of the things that Coach Lab talked about. Attack them in the open court off their misses.
Hard to set up the Syracuse zone when you're able to push the tempo.
It's much easier to attack the zone when they're backpedaling, not set in the positions.
Branch made his first start of the season this past week against Niagara. Had a season-high 12 points. Transfer from Texas A&M.
The Giannis have a lot of guys who can handle, a few guys who can shoot, slash, really well-rounded team.
And they seemingly lack a little bit of size outside of Obekba. Their 4 guy essentially is a 6'5" swingman in Serdon Pointer, but a lot of versatility, a lot of flexibility to what St. John's does.
Well, they use their athleticism. They have to because they're a little smaller. And that's why they cannot afford to get in foul trouble on the front court today.
And a turnover by Syracuse. Here comes Pointer. Green, there's a paint touch, and rejected by Christmas, getting over for the block. Here comes Syracuse.
Syracuse not pushing the ball as much as they have traditionally.
Foul against St. John's as with the under 16 media timeout. Raishi Jordan gets called for his first foul. It's the first against St. John's. Shane, we discuss this a lot when Syracuse is playing, and rightfully so, because that defense, their 2-3 zone that Jim Boeheim has almost always run. How do you beat this zone?
Well, the underbelly of any zone is right in the middle, right in the middle. You get the ball into the middle either by a drive or a pass. What it does, it collapses the zone and usually leaves a man open, often in the corners. Like that first possession, ball got to the middle, and they found the open shooter who was wide open. Most teams who fail against zones fail to get the ball inside the paint. And what happens is teams pass the ball around the perimeter for about 30 seconds of the shot clock and then jack a terrible shot as the shot clock goes down. It's imperative if you want to attack the zone, especially a great zone like Syracuse, you penetrate either the gaps or pass the ball to the big guy in the middle.
Something we're going to be keeping an eye out for all night long as these two Empire State rivals square off once again. An 89th meeting between these two charter members of the Big East. Syracuse has the all-time series lead. They've won 9 straight. Last win for St. John's came back in 2007. St. John's last win at the Carrier Dome came 15 years ago. Got to go back to 1999 when Mike Jarvis was the head coach, when St. John's last won here at the Carrier Dome.
And that's not lost on these guys. These guys know the history of their program. Talking to the St. John players before the game, this is their last game in the Carrier Dome for a lot of them. They want to make it count.
This was the last win at the Carrier Dome for the Johnnies, and a guy you remember pretty well, Ron Artest, had a big game that night. Red Storm were down by 4 at halftime, but Artest led the charge. He had 19 points that night. St. John's comes away with a win after holding Syracuse scoreless for the final 3.5 minutes. They took the 73-70 lead at about the 3:30 point. Their defense was locked down the rest of the way, and Mike Jarvis's team came out with a win in a very good rivalry week matchup between these two teams.
Now, the Big East just used to be an absolute buzzsaw, and there were a lot of pros in that game, and I think that St. John's team actually came to Cameron and beat the Dukies that year as well.
They had a lot of names on that team.
A lot of names. Eric Barkley and Reggie Jesse and LeVar Postel, Ron Artest, one of my favorite teammates of all time.
Well, the Big East has been off to an excellent start all season long. They won 39 of their first 42 games, as a matter of fact. Cooney is off target. Caleb Joseph runs it down near midcourt. Benajay off to Christmas, and he'll draw the foul.
Well, one of the weaknesses of St. John's so far in this season is defensive rebounding, and that's one area where the Orange can really exploit St. John's tonight is on the offensive glass.
Miles Stewart called for the foul. Rakeem Christmas, a guy who's made an incredible jump from his first 3 years to this year. Used to be just kind of a staple in the lineup. Now this guy has to be a focal point. So far he has been, but you'd like to see more from him.
Well, it's his program. Any great program in college, it's about senior and junior leadership, which you don't see too often anymore.
Right.
Taking the reins and making it their program.
118 career starts for Rakeem Christmas out of Philadelphia, the senior. It's Cooney and Joseph at the top of the zone. Rashid Jordan is in along with Green. Harrison is getting a breather right now. Obekba and Pointer make up the front court. Miles Stewart, the redshirt freshman, the walk-on in the game for the Johnnies. Shot clock at 8. Jordan stepping into a 3, and he knocks it down. Again, St. John's shooting better the last couple of games from distance.
They're making those shots. They become so much more difficult to guard off the dribble.
St. John's in his zone look here as well. Try to go inside to Christmas. This was the concern for Steve Lavin, because even in the zone, Christmas's size is still a major factor.
Well, he's the biggest guy on the floor, and Obekba just cannot afford to get into foul trouble, especially early.
Neither of these teams are really deep. I mean, these are essentially 7, maybe 8-man rotations on a night-in, night-out basis. A ton of guys play 28, 29, 30. Harrison plays 34 minutes a game. Touch once again for St. John's. Obekba had it deterred by Chris McCullough, the freshman.
Coach Lavin wants to get Obekba a little more involved on the offensive end.
Haven't seen it a lot yet. Benajay called for the offensive foul as Obekba stepped in to take the charge. Have to keep him out of foul trouble, but he steps in to a tough spot there.
Well, look, he's St. John's all-time leading shot blocker. But with that charge, he shows, hey, he's got a well-rounded defensive game. You don't see too many shot blockers taking charges.
Six minutes in, 8-6 lead for St. John's.
I want to see St. John's flatten the zone out. There we go. Get the ball into the middle.
Pointer will take that shot off target. Obekba in traffic, maybe pushed off Joseph to get a second look, but Christmas clears. Here's Joseph. Rotation to Benajay, and he knocks down a 3. He's got 5 of Syracuse's 9 points.
When you get good ball movement like that, it's so much easier to make a shot for a shooter.
1 of 5 Syracuse from 3-point range. That's their first hit. Jordan, another paint touch. They get inside, and Rashid Jordan missed the layup.
This is a little different Syracuse team. Joseph doesn't push the ball as much as Tyler Ennis.
McCullough on the nice feed from Benajay, and Steve Lavin will call a timeout as Syracuse has its largest lead.
The talent of Chris McCullough, tantalizing for the NBA scouts. You see why. 6'10", 7'3" wingspan, and can jump out of this gym.
Welcome those of you who saw Kansas State and Tennessee. Welcome to the Carrier Dome for an Empire State rivalry. The longtime Big East.
This is Sports Center live.
Welcome back into Sports Center. If you want to continue watching that game, go over to ESPN2. There's a top 10 men's game on ESPN1 right now. That's ESPN regular. That is Gonzaga and Arizona. But we had a top 3 game in women's hoops
Yeah,
today.
how about the ladies? A big rivalry, too, in women's hoops. You got number 2 Notre Dame taking on number 3 UConn. And this the 15th meeting between the two schools when both are ranked in the top 5 of the AP poll. That means you got 2 really good programs here. And since April of 2011, they have met 10 times. Notre Dame has won 7 of those, but UConn won the last one in the national championship. So that definitely counts for something. And UConn, they got down early in this game, but they quickly came back as they are meeting in a season the earliest time that they've met in 18 years. And UConn ended the half on a 22-4 run over the final 10 minutes. That gave them a 40-32 lead. So we head to the second half. UConn up 8. Morgan Tuck driving baseline, finishes with the foul. Later, UConn up 4. Tuck gets it up top, then drives left, finishes with the lay-in. She had 25 points, 9 rebounds, both of those career highs. UConn up 14. Kia Nurse buries the 3. UConn up 17. Kalina Mosqueda-Lewis. The pass, the corner 3. And UConn, their 8th straight win over a top 5 team. Here's Doris Burke with the head coach.
You move some pieces around in the aftermath of the Stanford game. You put Nurse in the starting lineup. Stokes comes off the bench. What did you think of the effort Kia Stokes gave you today?
You know, I wish I could figure Kia Stokes out. Just when I think she's not going to give us anything, she gives us a game like she gave us tonight. She was incredible. And she played with confidence, you know, like she played like I belong here and I'm good and I know what I'm doing. And maybe this is the start of something. I haven't been able to get through to her, so maybe the Irish got through to her. You're Irish, what the hell, you know.
I have no answers either. A year ago, you had Stephanie Dolson, Bria Hartley, 2 players who had been so integral. How much different is coaching this team for you personally? How much different is coaching this team?
Oh, it's way different. It's way different. You see, our offense is kind of like touch and go, you know. We have to get a lot off our transition. Our half-court offense is just okay, and last year was great. You can't replace somebody like that. But little by little, you know, we're going to have to find our way. We'll have to find an identity for this team. You know, we beat a really, really good team, and I know they didn't have a really good freshman. You know, Brianna Turner is going to be a heck of a player. So we just beat a really good team on the road. So it's December 6th, so I don't want everybody jumping up and down and thinking this was a national championship game. They're going to get a lot better. We're going to get a lot better, but I'm pretty happy right now.
Entering today, UConn actually had a losing record against Notre Dame over the last 5 seasons, but with today's win, UConn improves to 32-11 overall against the Fighting Irish and 7-7 over the last 5 seasons.